There you go. Says
There we
recorded. Okay.
Sean McDonald,
Ahead of time.
Yes, Steve.
I just speak, the original charter commission that was elected in 90, just for round numbers, we did have a consultant that was hired. We did have a budget. I'm not saying that we need it for this because this is a review, but there are notes and I couldn't tell you who it was now. It's been too long. And I couldn't tell you how much it cost, but we did have a little bit of guidance to get what we needed done back then.
I think it was because it was elected and it was the first time. And I believe that's why it was done, because basically it was just, babes, newborn babes going into something that, there's never been done before. And that was a big revamp too.
And I believe there was some community input
Yes.
opportunities at that time.
Yeah.
But
So-
it would be good to look at the original, if that's available, the original document, the changes or suggested changes from 10 years ago.
What I can do is Doug Roscoe was the chair the last time around, and he kept
Okay.
really great notes that he passed along to Cody, and I have those now. So what I'll do is I'll send you his files from the last charter review to everybody here, and you can read through them. I wasn't aware that they had hired a consultant, so I don't.
No, the
Well, back in-
original
when
one.
the
they
first
put
time-
out.
Oh, the original. Okay.
in
So no,
90s.
there wasn't, but I'll send you everything Doug had and their recommendations, and it laid it out pretty good. I mean, they did a good job. So I think maybe you might want to mimic that or use that as a base and try to come up with some, plan moving forward. So maybe,
Well, what do you think the possibility is of finding the original documents?
for the original charter, well, so that would have been what?
The
I-
90s sometime.
1990.
90. Were you born then, Sean?
I was.
Oh, ouch.
I wasn't.
If you could find those, that would be great. If somebody could scan them in as a PDF and send them
Yes.
to us.
So, yeah, I'll see what I can find. I mean, we found these, and I'll see what. So, that would have been what? 2000 would have been. Was there something done then? And are you saying in
It was the
19?
I think people said it was the 90s.
So,
The original
The
charter
chair.
was enacted in 1990, and I may still have paperwork from then.
yeah, I'll go through what we have here.
I mean, there should have been 90 and then a review in 2000 and there was 2010.
Two sets of data then, one from the 90s and one from. All right?
Yeah, okay, Brian, can you just say that again? For some reason,
there should
I don't
be
think your
two-
microphone is not,
Yeah, I know, I'm having problems. There should be two sets of data, one from the 1990s and one from 2000.
yeah, 2000 and 2010. We have Doug Roscoe, which was 2010.
Great. That will be helpful.
So there's a motion made by Sean for Heidi to be the chair, was seconded by Mary. Any discussion?
Thank you.
We'll do a vote. I'll take a roll call. Sean,
Yes,
Brian,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Heidi?
I'll abstain.
Okay. Mary,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Brock,
Aye.
Dave,
Yes.
Steve Taylor, you there? I think he fell off.
yeah, he did. He must be going from his car to home.
Oh, okay.
Then I'm gonna make a motion that we appoint Brock Cadero as the vice chair.
I'll second that.
That was David's seconded.
Dave, yes, it did. Seconds.
Heidi, you are now the chair. You can take over.
Oh,
Congratulations, Heidi.
oh, thank you. I'm in a comfy chair.
Okay, so
I will reach out to Steve as the original chair, Doug, and when we can find out whoever that, the chair from 2000 was, I'll just, check in and see what they have for notes.
So how would you suggest doing this? Once we find the data, is then review it, say with the 90s first,
Well,
And
one
then-
thing, before we do that, Brian, so there's a motion by Sean for Brock to be the vice chair.
Oh, okay.
It was seconded by,
David,
Dave Cunha.
okay. And
and make sure we have Melanie next time.
I know, sorry.
So
Yeah,
now we have to do that same roll call vote.
Heidi, you need to do the roll call vote.
Oh, I'll do it. All right. Sean McDonald,
Yes,
myself, yes. Sean,
he's not voting.
oh, he's not voting. Oh,
No.
okay. You're a non-voter. Okay, Brian,
Yes,
Teresa,
Yes.
Cody,
No, Cody's not
non-voting
voting.
member. Okay. Screwing it up already, I am. Steve
Sorry.
Mello,
Yes,
Dave Cunha,
Yes.
Mary Waite,
Yes.
Brock Cadero.
I abstain.
Very good. Congratulations, Brock.
Thank you.
Okay, so now to get that clarified.
Okay, now Sean has his hand up.
Yep, Madam Chair.
Yes, dear.
One of the suggestions is, for part of homework is just to review the existing charter as is. Make your own personal notes. I've already started taking a look at it. I've got already a few notes, but you know, just to see what's something we can take a look at. One of the questions that we need to address is whether or not we're tweaking, changing, or having a complete overhaul.
this is why I suggested getting a hold of the old data so that we could review it and see if any of that is outdated or if it's still current and whether or not it deserves any kind of consideration based on what's happened in the town over the last 20 years.
Right. And one of the things I would like, I'm requesting Sean to do is to contact Braintree or Framingham. They just recently, within the last year, went from town to, they changed their form of government from select board to a council type government. I'm not sure if they did it with a mayor or they did it with a TA, a town administrator. So, but I believe those two were the most recent that I had heard.
Framingham changed to mayor, so that, I don't know if that's something, I know people say we're big enough to have one, but I'm not sure there's the will out there for mayor. But North Attleboro did change from,
Okay, yeah, okay, you're right.
from select board to, I think, from town administrator to town manager or vice versa. And all of their information is on the website because I've looked at it. If you want to just go there and look at it, if you're interested.
Okay.
There's one other one that I looked at only because some of my neighbors around here have actually lived there. It's the town of Wellesley,
Oh, okay.
which is supposedly a very progressive in terms of how they run their town government. And I think it's about the same size as Dartmouth.
Right.
I mean, I was thinking another way of doing this, because we don't have the staff to do this. It might be interesting to take a look. There's I forget the name of it, but there's a state services website that lists towns with all kinds of parameters in terms of things like the budget.
ELS, yep.
Department of Revenue, I can send out that link.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking it might be if we can find towns that have similar size budgets and similar size numbers of inhabitants, and also similar, what's the word I'm looking for? Similar
Demographics.
demographics, yes, similar demographics. Then we might be able to see what they've done, if
Well,
anything.
one of the ones that have been constantly, Dartmouth has always been tied with is Falmouth. Seaside community, seasonal residents, you know, an area of business, you know, the commercial, residential is a mix. Somebody had once said something about Barnstable, but I think Barnstable's kind of like that's a different kind of an animal because it's just, you know, I mean, their police force doubles in the summertime. Well, maybe not this summer, but their police force doubles with seasonal. But I mean, maybe that's something to look at.
So I have a further question. If we do that, I mean, I've used those tables and Sean knows what I'm talking about. I really don't remember the name of them. But the question then becomes if you can find some that are similar in terms of budget, size, demographics, somebody's going to have to do the research and get a hold of, like, at least on the website of the town and get a hold of their charter.
I can tell you, when we did last year, we did a reclassification and compensation study for the town employees. And that consultant that we use, they create a list of comparable communities similar to Dartmouth. And they're not local communities. They're communities that are based on a number of factors. I'm trying to look those up. It's population, it's budget, it's, net average income, a number of factors that really define the community.
And things like real estate values too, I would think.
That as well. So, it made for a good comparison because sometimes towns want to compare themselves to their neighbors, but, Dartmouth's getting large, but we also have cities and, Westport, which is smaller. So it was a good comparison. Falmouth is one of those towns. I don't have the list in front of me, but I'll send that information as well, so you can see what the comparable communities were and what those statistics were that they used to compare them.
That's good.
So is it too early in the process for us to talk about what some of the agenda items might be? I know, Sean, you had started to talk a little bit about the town clerk position. Is it not a good time for us to do that right now? Should we
Well,
wait?
I was thinking it may be wise if people have not read through it, that they probably need to read through it without prejudice
Okay.
and from their own lens, read through the document and see what ahas come up or questions that we don't know as individuals. We don't know about a particular board, or we don't know what their task or this makeup or budgeting, what goes into it. So we may I think we probably should, we know that we've got a town meeting coming up in October. We're not doing anything for this October. So I think if we read through it and look at, well, we've got a town meeting coming up June of next year. Is there anything we feel that must be addressed as we go forth? And then kind of pair it off to see if there's anything.
Heidi,
Yes,
Heidi,
Brian.
Heidi, maybe we could find out too, are there any deadlines that we have to meet? Because I think my commission, or whatever they called it in the letter, lasted for 2 years. Is there are there any deadlines associated with this? I don't expect anybody to have that answer, but I'm just.
Brian,
asking.
could I make a comment on that?
So I have a tentative timeline and tasks that I can share. I'll send that out. So April 2021, the committee delivers proposal to town council. June 2021, they suggest revisions with the town clerk. July 2021, the select board holds a public hearing on the proposed revisions. August and September 2021, select board writes a report on the public hearing, and the charter review committee writes a charter review report. October 2021, charter review presents revisions to town meeting for approval. Approved revisions are sent to the Attorney General after that meeting. In March 2022, the charter review report is made available to town voters. In April 2022, the town election to vote, there's a town election to vote on the revisions, and whatever is approved would go into effect July 1st, 2022.
So that to me is a pretty tight schedule in terms of work that has to be done.
I mean, that can be, if the town meeting and the election days kind of dictate, but if you ended up being 6 months, a year behind, it is what it is. I mean, we've had COVID, so we get a late start as it is.
Okay.
Sean, may I make a suggestion? I'm glad to be back on the meeting by video. Can you guys hear me okay?
Oh, there, yes.
Yes.
We have the 10-year master plan coming up in roughly that same time frame that you just outlined. And it seems to me that it would make sense for us, and it would make sense to the citizens, if we didn't finalize our charter revisions until after we see what is finalized in the 10-year master plan. It doesn't make any sense to have one saying apples and one saying oranges, which would be a possibility if we didn't coordinate it.
Well, I think they are apples and oranges. You know, the master plan really talks about, you know, the future of the town, but the charter is really the governance of the town.
Yes.
I don't think in the master plan there's anything that talks about the governance. And then in the charter, there's nothing that talks about kind of the master plan or the planning. There's the bylaw review committee, which reviews the town bylaws, and that's a little bit different. And that has more of a connection, I think, with the master plan.
Well, I don't
Master plan
disagree
of the
that they're different in that sense, but if the master plan had a vision that we want to do something or we want to stop doing something, it might require a charter change to make that happen, or a charter change might make it more likely to be able to happen. So I just toss it out there for consideration.
Yeah, I mean, as the group gets farther along and it started to really start chewing on the charter, so to speak, and, you know, we can look at, you know, maybe there is more of a relation to the master plan and then take that up.
So I did notice that I looked at the old master plan and there are things in there which I'm not, one thing that struck me was, and especially in terms of budgeting in these times, is that they talked about an economic development commission. I don't know if the town even has something like that. Do we?
No.
Well, I mean, I would think something like that I'm not saying should be, could be put into the charter that would require some kind of staffing or something along those lines. So, I mean, what I'm doing is agreeing with Steve that maybe that's the case. I don't know.
Yeah, the town does have an industrial development commission. How active it is right now pretty much is not. Cody's position is the director of development, and that was a direct result of that suggestion. And it was actually his position was a kind of a co-mingled position with an old grant writing position that used to be that the select board had, you know, way before 2010. And it was decided to put the two of them together, and it's actually worked out extremely well for the town in many things. As far as that type of commission, yeah, definitely something that could be looked into. You know, but we do have an industrial development commission that we can change the name. I'm not sure if it's named in the charter though. That's just the.
Well, my only point in raising it was to agree with Steve saying that I do know, I actually read, sad to say, the 200 and some odd pages of the 2008 plan. And there were things in there that I don't think ever came to fruition that might be spelled out in some more detail in the new plan, or there might be other topics that might be that should be or might be reflected in a new charter. I don't know, but I do know that particular one.
I think these questions all come from, you know, my interest in this is having departments work better together. And that's a good example. Like when I was first on the finance committee, one of the things that I remember us looking at was the retail reuse study that had been done by the Dukakis Center. I don't know where that went. I don't know what it's doing. And I know we don't have a chamber of commerce. I know we don't have, you know, anybody who, and we hear this story with other plans that have been done that the plan is good. There's good goals, you know, but then kind of what happens. So that my interest is, and I don't know if that's a bylaw issue or if that's a charter issue, and I'll find out because we'll do some more reading and we'll figure that out. But I think those are good. So I think we have to think about all of these options without overloading ourselves with, you know, looking at things that aren't directly related. I know to me, the bylaws and the charter seem more related than the master plan. I don't even know if that's true. That's just, you know, an opinion.
Well, bylaws kind of really go into depth into the basically the nuts and bolts of what the charter does. I mean, the charter gives us a outline of how the government should be and what its functions are, and then the bylaws gives those functions and those outlines the teeth.
So there is kind of more of an overlap there. Yeah, okay.
I also know that with anything, we can end up going down a rabbit hole
Yeah,
very easily, trying to control lots of different things that maybe aren't our charge.
Right.
So I think once we all read through the charter and have our own aha moments and want to discuss them so we can make sure we're all clear on what each item says. The charter document itself is quite lengthy. So I think just getting through that is.
Well, I will make a comment. I have read, again, some other towns' charters, and ours is very minuscule compared to how other charters are laid out. And they take a lot more detail in, I don't know, the bylaws, I don't know what it is, but it's a lot more detailed in other towns' charters. It sounds like what the bylaw committee does, but it's laid out a lot more specifically in other towns' charters.
so
So
back to the timeline, Sean McKinnis, were you saying the bylaw committee is going to follow the same schedule, or is the,
No, but the bylaw committee is required according to the charter every 5 years. So they are to be implemented this year to review the general bylaws. So that committee's smaller and it doesn't really give a timeline, in the charter the way it's been given with the charter review committee.
okay,
Yeah, basically, it's a committee to review the bylaws so that you can throw away the old bylaw that says you can't wear plaid on Sundays if the weather's wet and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, I mean, something like that, so, but I mean, there are some tweaking things, and they do some good jobs as far as that goes.
just out of curiosity, did the bylaw committee spell out the responsibilities of, say, the select board with relation to developing policies and then making sure those policies filter down throughout the organization of the town?
That would be in the
No,
charter.
that's us.
That's what I thought. That's my, well, that's the point.
Directly dealing with how the departments can go about it. But significantly, one of them right here is Steve Mello. The bylaw tells Steve what can and cannot be done in the harbor master roles and what he can do as a harbor master role and what he can do as a shellfish warden. But as that goes, the charter gives the policies. The bylaw gives basically the meat, saying that the fences in town cannot be any higher than 6 feet.
Yeah, I think a good way to put it is the charter tells the government what they can and can't do, and the bylaws tell the citizenry what they can and can't do.
There you go.
okay.
Yeah, that's about right. I can tell you this, since the last charter commission, there hasn't been any issues that have come up that said, wow, it's in the charter, that's kind of screwy. We haven't had, I don't recall anything happening in town that just say, wow, we really need to take a look at this in the charter because it's really nuts.
Well, I think that's the point I was trying to make. If you look at our charter compared to other towns, and I not the master, but I've looked at a few others. Ours is very, it doesn't really spell out responsibilities of each individual organization that is recounted in the charter, and what their relationship is to other organizations in the town administration, which I don't know. I mean, maybe that was good 10 years ago. I'm not so sure it is these days.
So maybe a good way to start is, the charter is broken up by articles. And maybe the committee can take on, one article at a time or review it. Some of them don't need any changing at all. Others need more, but I think once you go through each article, I think there's 6 total. I'm trying to see here, 6, 7. Then you can circle back and say, okay, we've reviewed all the separate articles. Let's, see how they relate to one another and what changes need to be made.
I mean, I agree with Heidi. I think the first thing we all should do is read it and maybe make that point number one for the agenda. Make sure everybody's read it next time, and then have some by the next meeting, and then have some sort of discussion in general about what our impressions are, and then zero in on certain articles that we have issues with.
Sounds good.
Original charter started with each article and went through that article, interviewed department heads and anybody that wanted to speak. Let's say it was a planning board, and we did it methodically, and then we would put that article to rest, and then we'd move on to the next. And we had appointments set up with each related group to that article. Again, so if it was the planning board, we would meet with the director of planning and any members of the board that wanted to. It was a question and answer exchange, and then we would take.
Being Zoom bombed.
No, it's David's ringtone. I've been trying to get that ringtone because that's the ringtone from draft day.
That's good information to have, so we could consider that at some point, you know, whether we think we need to meet with people in a particular board. And there's been, you know, I just know on the finance committee, there have been a few things that have come up over time that we've wondered about. So that could be.
Okay. Sounds good.
So Steve Mello, did you have, when you served on it, did they have the exact amount of time that we had to produce a document, or did they have longer?
I think we had longer because we were an elected board commission, which gave us greater power, and there was no existing charter, so we were writing the first charter. Our task as assigned was to codify exactly what we had. Prior attempts at making a charter failed because they were attempting changes, and changes never widely accepted. So our function was to get a charter of what we had at the time that we could adapt and change as time went on.
Yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, I believe the commission started in 90, and I think the final adoption of the charter was in 95.
So probably accurate. I'd have to get my file from back then, but it sounds about right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was, and like Steve said, that wasn't elected, so they have a little bit more of a different scope is the way how they can go about things. So,
But I heard Sean say that if we get through with our initial deliberations, we could recommend that an elected charter, I mean, if it turns out that everyone agrees there's a lot of work to be done, it
Mhm.
could be that an elected charter elected charter commission might be the next step, depending on the amount of work.
It's
and
not
that's
the
basically
amount.
anybody who runs is the first, if it's set for 9 people, the charter commission is the top 9 vote getters get in.
Yeah, and there are certain, it's not the amount of work that we want to change, it's the level. If we're going to change from a select board to a mayor, it can't be done with an appointed charter. You would need to have an elected. There's a certain level that gets triggered. It's not we can make 1,000 changes. If they're all of a small nature, we can do that. If we try to make one big change, we may not have the authority to do that.
So who,
That's
so
what happened
who,
in North Attleboro.
well, I was just gonna say, who has the data that tells us when the tripwire we go over, we have to have an election? Sean, the state must have that, right?
Yeah,
This is-
It has to do with whether it's in the legislative or executive branches, but we'd probably have to find out from Anthony on that.
Well, I was just gonna say, we should at least have that before we go down, as Heidi was saying, a rabbit hole and spend a lot of time on something that requires an elected charter commission.
Yeah.
We'll have Anthony O'Brien
yeah.
you know, as part of this, and they're, you know, they're pretty good actually. So both of them.
But I mean, I would like to see something in writing saying,
Mhm.
this is the tripwire where you have to have an elected charter commission.
Yes, that's state law.
Yeah, but I'd like to see it. I don't know what it is.
Probably the Attorney General's office may have that.
Yeah, we'll find out. I made a note here. We'll start researching that.
So what do we agree to do next time around? And when is the next time around?
I think we agreed to read the charter,
Yep.
a note, and then maybe start attacking the charter one section at a time.
Will
Yeah. All right. Can I make a suggestion?
Wednesdays work? Will
sorry, sir.
Wednesdays work for this group?
Does for me now.
Every Wednesday. So if there's another day of the week, I'd prefer that, but
Wednesday's good for me.
Well, I don't want to conflict. I know, select board and school committee are on
Mondays.
Mondays.
Mondays, yep.
Out.
Yep. fine.
Finance committee's on Thursdays.
Okay. They're no longer Tuesday, Thursdays? Just
Depends
Thursday
on
now?
what we're discussing.
Okay. Well, I guess if it's during the winter time, it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, getting ready for the big budget, so.
Can be, yeah.
Yeah, Wednesdays, is the time good at 6 or earlier or?
Not earlier, please. Yeah.
6 is good for me.
Okay.
It's good.
6 is
And
fine for
Steve,
me.
is
And
Wednesday's a deal breaker for you?
no, there's gonna be somewhere I can't, but I'll figure that out as we go along.
Okay.
Wednesday's good for me because the planning board is on Monday.
So is 6, so we'll go to 6. Is 6 okay?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yes, fine for me.
Do we try to carve out how long
Yes.
each meeting is going to be, or is it 6 until indefinitely each week?
I think for all of us, even if we go over, it's always good to have what we presume to be an end time.
Yes.
And I think tonight will be an early one, but I think the next one, I hate to say 90 minutes. I think we're going to need more than an hour when we're talking.
I think so too.
I think
Well-
90 is a good benchmark, because once you start getting beyond that, you start getting, like the last select board meeting, was up until like 10 o'clock. Between executive session and the regular meeting, it was like, sorry,
it's
4.5
possible
hours and I'm spent.
It's possible it could go to 2, but if we start by saying 2, we might drown it in 2.5 hours. So I think that
I agree with Heidi. Call it 90 minutes and be willing to go for 2 when you're on a roll, but I think that's good
Yes.
advice.
got something.
Now, how often do you want to meet?
I don't want to meet more than some of these other boards meet.
Well,
But-
weekly might be a lot for people, or do you want to do?
Oh, yeah,
I don't know. It's up to you. 3 weeks?
Every 3 weeks, at least to
I-
start. And if we need to go every 2, maybe it depends upon what it is.
That
I-
makes sense.
May I make a suggestion that we have one in 2 weeks, read the charter, and then see what scope of work we might be talking about, and then Sean can do some research on the points that we brought up that we need more data on. And then we can figure out how much stuff we have to go through
Yep.
and where the tripwires are in terms of having an elected charter commission. I would say 2 weeks, assuming we can get all that stuff together and sent out, Sean.
Yeah, I'm good for the 14th.
Yeah, I'll put together as much as I can and send it. I'll send the historical information I can find, the files from the last charter review, which were pretty comprehensive, which are great. And then all the other information. We'll look at the other towns, their charter reviews, and see what they have for information. So maybe we'll just provide links if they have the website where you can just kind of view it on your own. I'm also going to do some research on just the charter review consultant to see what kind of support is out there in case we, just to get some information in case this committee feels like we might need more support. And I'll see what I can come up with. I know I had asked about it, I think, a while ago when I first started this process, and there are some people out there that have done this. So I'll see if I can track them down and get some information and go from there.
2 weeks is the 14th. That's the shortened week because of Columbus weekend, if that matters to anybody. I don't know if the 21st is too far to go. That's 3 weeks. But I just point out that that's a holiday week, so it'll be shortened.
I don't know if I can do the 21st.
Yeah, I'm
The 14th is okay with me.
I'm good.
14th's good for me.
I'm not meeting on the Monday, so
Yeah.
The 14th is good for me, Mary.
I'm between 2 appointments. I got an appointment on the 13th and I got something on the 15th, so it's like,
So it sounds like the 14th, right?
14th.
And Sean, will you send a Zoom link out or whatever we need?
Yes, yep, I'll send that. So we'll do some minutes. We'll get those done, but also send out information I'll try to send it all out in one email, which will be a lot, but, and then I'll also have the Zoom link for the next meeting in there. Now, I usually send out like a
Save
meeting
yourself
request.
some work. If something's already on the website, just send the link.
I will, yeah, definitely. So for the meetings with the Zoom links, I usually send a meeting request. Does that work for people, or do you want me to just send it through an email? So, which is like a, I usually send the meeting invite, so you'll get a meeting invite that goes into your calendar, but if that.
That sounds
Click
good.
on the link, that's fine.
Fine with
Good.
me.
Okay,
And I'm gonna look ahead at, Wednesdays from now on, because we're gonna bump it against some issues in November. So I'll try to plan things in between those holidays. So I'll just do a big calendar. I love a paper calendar. But I think that the other thing I was wondering is the charter, which I kind of downloaded from the website, but is there a way to get something that can be,
paper
that we
form.
can mark it up?
A Word document?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, a Word document or yeah.
yep, we can do that.
Heard it-
So
heard that,
would we be
Word.
using the markup capabilities of Word?
I have to see how we can get the information from, we have a company that hosts the charter. And you can export certain sections in PDF and Word. But if you want the whole charter, I'll have to see about if we can get that. And
Well, that brings up an interesting question too. I mean, suppose we all are, let's just suppose we're going to use the Word function of making changes. All that has to be consolidated by somebody. And I don't know, is that the chairperson and the assistant chairperson, or is it,
Well, if we're working off a Google Doc, we would all be working off the exact same document, literally. And can
well,
access
but
the
we're all
editor.
working off the same thing with, that's the point I was trying to make. We're all working off the Word document as well. Could be done that way. I don't really use Google. I suppose I could figure it out, but maybe we can talk about that at the next meeting.
Yeah, my concern about Google might be that you can actually physically change the document, and we don't want anyone doing that accidentally.
no, so what we can do, I would recommend we start the review process. And if there's significant changes, then maybe we look at a way of either having an editable Word document, or we can do it through Google Docs. But if we just find there's not a lot of changes, one or two people can handle the edits, and the committee can review.
Okay.
Sometimes with too many people in there making their changes, it just can.
That was my worry. 9 different people making changes. It
What do
would
they say?
be,
Too many cooks in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Public trust, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Are we square?
I think so.
I'm just going back to the agenda just to make sure that we've,
It wasn't much on the agenda.
no.
Application discussion.
You actually covered a lot more than I thought. That's
All
good.
right, so we did sort of talk to, so you had appointment, is this just your,
Oh, yeah, that's our
Skeleton
general
of-
agenda, yeah.
okay.
I
Okay,
think we shouldn't quit unless we first thank Heidi for agreeing to be the chair.
Yes.
I agree.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you very much.
already wondering.
It didn't seem like I had much choice, Heidi.
Yes.
Well, this will be
And
good.
also Brock.
Yes.
Yes,
Brock.
thank you.
Yay, Brock.
Rock, you can't bring any swords to the meetings, though.
If I showed you the actual background, you'd see a whole bunch of swords and axes and the
I've
rest of the
already
King
seen
Richard
that.
Fair
I've
stuff.
seen that background. It's very scary.
Why
That might
why
be
don't you
too much.
spare us next time, Brock? I'd like to see it.
Be
No
timely
future
for
mentality.
Halloween.
Brock is a collector of many things, but also his latest endeavor is he's a Renaissance character
King
in
Richard.
King Richard's Fair, and he's actually They made a position for him because they needed a Viking, and they got one.
Ah, I guess so. But I'm assuming King Richard's Fair is another
Kill
loss
them.
to
Oh,
COVID
That's a casualty this year, yes.
casualty.
we love King Richard's Fair.
Yeah.
My son's a huge fan who's sitting in the back who heard singing before. So
All
Fear
right.
not, I will not slip into my bad Norwegian accent. I will spare you that at least.
we'll look forward to it next year. You know, cheat to win. We're like I said, it's a good one.
So if we're all set, then I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
Second.
Second.
All right.
Excellent. So we'll see everybody
Oh, Heidi, you have to take a roll call vote.
out for that. Okay, Sean,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes,
Terry,
Yes,
Steve,
Yes.
Steve Mello, Steve
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes,
Brock Cadero,
Yes.
Dave Cunha,
Yes.
and Mary Waite.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Excellent.
see
We'll
you.
see everyone
everybody on
6
the 14th.
o'clock.
nice meeting you all.
So
Nice
be
meeting
prepared
you,
for a
Charles.
lot
nice to
of
meet you
information.
guys.
Be
Good
prepared
night.
for a lot of information via email, so.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Okay.
All right, everybody.
Uh-uh.
Have a great
Good
weekend.
night.
Thanks.
Thank
you.
Bye,
Bye.
Brian.
Bye.